Hi, Bother Brigade. Here's what's bothering me today. Where to even begin? A lot's happened, right? And a lot is still happening behind the scenes. All the pushback against mandates and basic public health measures and people crying to return back to normal. Think hard and fucking clear about the early parts of 2020 and 2019. Was normal really fucking working for you? Was normal where you're working 50 plus hours a week and struggling to put food on the table for you and your family, not getting further ahead in life while you're still working, and people are saying, no, just work harder, don't do anything. Apparently, we're all capable of owning a home, we just need to cut out Starbucks or whatever the fuck kind of bullshit excuse they threw. Was normal really working? Seriously, was it good that people were working themselves to early graves and not getting pensions or time off? Was normal with 90-plus-year-old ladies named Kathy working at Walmart, possibly up until their death, when they should be enjoying their golden years? Was that normal really good? Was the normal of, I guess this is something that still continued, the rampant inequality and the rampant greed and corporate profits where they just rake in unspendable amounts of money and the actual workers producing that get zip? Was normal where people are struggling not only to, put food on the table and keep a roof over their head, but again, in places like America, if you have a medical emergency, good luck clawing out of that? Was normal where people are paying ridiculous amounts of interest on their student loans to the point that while they've effect in terms of how much money they've put trying to pay it down and paying the interest, they should have rightfully paid off the loan and then some. But instead, because of the BS of how the interest works, they still owe most of the amount. Was normal really good with all the overproduction and overspending on things and creating artificial scarcity to please certain people in industries? Was that normal really fucking good, exploiting people at all levels in all corners of the world? Seriously asking here, because when I think back to before the pandemic, right, it's really hard to think of that as some kind of utopian golden age. And there's all this misinformation online that is getting to everyone, particularly, in my opinion, the far right, but it is everywhere. Like, because of how algorithms work and how people are trying to use data to target you with everything from, like, here's some things we think you'd like to buy, and here are people we think you'd like to hear, and here are things we think you'd like to do. It's just like, it is pushing everyone into smaller and smaller bubbles. And then when that's your own lived experience, it is a very shallow and narrow lived experience. And so you think, oh, we're the majority and I'm totally right because no one challenges me on my views and I can easily just block someone and tell them that they're wrong. And maybe they are and maybe they aren't. But unfortunately, this whole apparatus, which again is the normal, so many people are super fucking eager to get back to for some weird ass reason, that is not something that we should actually go back to. I don't see, and let me be clear here, right? I'm not saying that the pandemic has been a jolly good time. I know I have definitely struggled with certain things, and I recognize that I have had a smoother pandemic experience than others because I was able to get I had a part-time job, lost that, quickly got a new part-time job, and then that became full-time. So it's like, okay, you know what? I've actually had some help. I had the CERB for a while that was helping things out between jobs. So, okay, I had a relatively smooth pandemic experience, all things considered. But that doesn't mean I'm saying, oh, this was actually great, more of this please, and more lockdowns and not seeing friends and family for months at a time. Like, no, this hasn't been great. But for all the people screaming for returning to the normal before this all happened. Why? It wasn't actually that fucking good. It wasn't good to see people struggling. And I'm sure a lot of people who are asking for back to normal, they weren't exactly living their best lives. And if the pandemic suddenly meant that, you know, the shallowness of life in terms of I can't buy all the things, I can't go to the bars and stuff, and now people are like struggling with the reality of existence and they're becoming nihilists or existentialists or something, that is a problem. But it should be a wake-up call. It doesn't mean that we need to go back to the literal goddamn horror of before, where people were suffering and life was still difficult. The pandemic has only made it more acutely felt by more people and just more difficult. But it's not like normal was anything good to begin with. And the fact that there are thousands, if not millions of people who want to return to that actual hell, that is a problem. It is deeply disturbing because unless you were in like a really good position and like a super wealthy capitalist, normal wasn't good and it wasn't working. And yeah, sure, we want to get out of this pandemic because this is a completely different kind of nightmarish hell. But the answer to this isn't more of going back to the like nightmare scenario that led to this nightmare scenario. That's not how we are going to move past things and meaningfully improve and address the very real problems and concerns that the vast majority have felt and experienced, not just over the past 2 years, but over the past decades. Let's be honest here. And all this isn't even talking about the fact that, while sure, a bunch of restrictions are ending, like there was the announcement today that Boris Johnson is lifting basically all restrictions in England. Yeah, because we still haven't actually reached herd immunity, there's just more opportunity for a new variant to emerge. And we have to do all this again in the future, or we're going to be asked to do it again in the future, when none of us want that, right? We all want this to be done. But I take issue with the people who want to go back to normal, to that nightmarish hell where people were struggling and, you know, inflation was still bad and housing affordability was still bad. The pandemic has only made things worse, but that's not to say that what came before was in any way good or better. And I think people have lost sight of that, and that is what's bothering me today.